The Roman Empire was a vast, interconnected machine powered by a simple loop. Taxes funded the army provided security, and security enabled prosperity. Taxes, mostly from agriculture, paid for the legions who defended borders and enforced Roman law. This stability allowed trade and farming to thrive, creating a cycle that kept the empire strong. Roman law unified the empire, letting a merchant in Britain trust a deal with a trader in Syria. The army built roads, secured trade, and suppressed piracy, making the empire a single market. Taxes from a Spanish farmer could pay a soldier in Dacia, whose protection allowed that farmer to prosper. A small civil service managed this vast system, relying on local elites, the curiales, to collect taxes and run cities. In exchange, these elites gained status and protection for their estates. This partnership let Rome govern a huge territory without a massive bureaucracy. The system's fuel was agricultural wealth, especially from North Africa, Egypt, and Sicily, the empire's breadbaskets. Surpluses of grain and oil were taxed and redistributed to feed cities and supply the legions. As long as harvests were good and taxes collected, the Roman engine ran smoothly. The prosperity and power of Rome rested on this delicate balance of money, military, and local cooperation. But this engine needed constant maintenance, and when it faltered, so did the empire. By the 3rd and 4th centuries, the tax military loop began to unravel. The wealthy elites, once proud to serve as local officials, now saw the job as a financial trap. They were forced to cover tax shortfalls from their own pockets, turning honor into punishment. Many used their influence to escape these duties, joining the senatorial class, clergy, or bureaucracy for tax breaks. This exodus left less capable people in charge, shrinking the tax base. Rich landowners built private fiefdoms, ignoring imperial tax collectors and creating their own security forces. The state lost access to its wealthiest land, so taxes on small farmers and peasants soared. Higher taxes led to abandoned land, shrinking the tax base further, a vicious cycle. The central government was starved of resources, while local magnates grew stronger. The empire fractured into semi-independent territories, each looking out for itself. The great Roman machine was breaking down piece by piece. As tax revenues dried up, the Roman army suffered first. Soldiers were paid late or with goods instead of money, eroding morale and loyalty. Recruitment of Roman citizens faltered as small farmers lost their land. Emperors increasingly relied on barbarian recruits, Goths, Franks, Vandals, often as entire tribal groups called foederati. These troops fought for Rome but kept their own leaders and loyalties. The army became a patchwork of factions loyal to generals rather than the emperor. Powerful warlords, often of barbarian origin, commanded private armies and controlled politics. The once unified Roman military splintered into competing factions. The shield of the empire was broken, and its pieces became weapons in internal power struggles. Rome's greatest strength had become its greatest vulnerability. With the army fractured, emperors lost real power. Generals, masters of the soldiers, became the true rulers, controlling the military and treasury. The imperial throne became a prize in endless civil wars and coups. Dozens of emperors and usurpers rose and fell, paralyzing government. Power shifted from institutions to personal loyalty and military might. Provincial governors and landowners stopped sending taxes, organizing their own defense. The empire dissolved from the top down, leaving only a hollow crown and a battlefield of rival warlords. Internal chaos left the West fatally exposed to outside threats. The loss of North Africa was the West's fatal blow. Africa was the empire's breadbasket and cash cow, supplying grain, oil, and tax revenue. In 429, the Vandals invaded, and by 439 they had captured Carthage, seizing the empire's richest province. Grain shipments to Rome stopped, causing food shortages and panic. The loss of African tax revenue, possibly half the government's income, meant the army could no longer be paid or equipped. The military shrank, unable to defend or reclaim lost territories. As more provinces fell, the tax base shrank further, deepening the crisis. The Vandals built a fleet, raiding the Mediterranean and even sacking Rome in 455. The loss of Africa triggered a death spiral the West could not escape. The empire bled money and security with no hope of recovery. The fall of Carthage marked the point of no return. The so-called barbarian groups, Goths, Vandals, Franks and others, didn't destroy Rome in a single invasion. For centuries they were allies, traders and even Roman soldiers. Their migrations were driven by pressures like the Huns, not a coordinated attack. Rome once managed them with diplomacy and force, but by the 5th century it was too weak to do either. Barbarian leaders exploited the power vacuum, demanding land and titles when Rome couldn't deliver. Groups like the Visigoths, Vandals and Suebi carved out kingdoms inside the empire. The government, unable to evict them, recognized their settlements in name only. Vast territories and tax revenues were lost forever. The wolves weren't just at the door, they were inside, taking over as Rome argued with itself. The empire's borders became meaningless as new kingdoms rose on Roman soil. While the West collapsed, the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, endured. The East had key advantages: a larger urbanized tax base, control of Egypt's grain, and a secure capital at Constantinople. The city's strategic location and massive walls made it nearly impregnable. The Eastern government kept its treasury and bureaucracy safe, even during invasions. Eastern emperors managed generals better and used diplomacy to deflect threats westward. They turned potential enemies into problems for the West, like sending Theodoric to Italy. A strong navy protected trade and made seaborne invasions unlikely. The East's financial strength, geography, and shrewd leadership kept it afloat. While the West bled out, the East survived and flourished for another 1,000 years. The Byzantine Empire was Rome's true legacy. For ordinary people, Rome's fall was a slow, uneven decline. In Britain, Roman rule vanished, cities emptied, and the economy collapsed as Saxons arrived. In Gaul, Roman aristocrats paid taxes to new Gothic or Frankish rulers, while trade and roads decayed. Spain fragmented into territories ruled by Suebi, Vandals, and Visigoths. Daily life became more local, violent, and uncertain as state structures vanished. Aqueducts crumbled, markets disappeared, and military elites dominated. Even Italy, the empire's heart, saw its population and grandeur shrink. The city of Rome, once 1 million strong, became a shadow of itself. Forums and temples turned to ruins or grazing land. The complex system that fed and supplied the city was gone. Urban life faded, replaced by a patchwork of small, insecure communities. The Roman world's collapse was not a single event, but a long, grinding transformation. The empire's end was felt most in the slow unraveling of daily life. The fall of Rome wasn't caused by a single event, battle, or moral failing. It was a slow breakdown of the systems that made Rome strong. The core loop, taxes funding the army, collapsed as elites evaded taxes and estates became untaxable. The state lost revenue, couldn't pay a professional army, and relied on less loyal barbarian troops. This led to political chaos, civil war, and the rise of warlords. The loss of North Africa's wealth was the final blow. Barbarian kingdoms rose because Rome was already too weak to stop them. The Western Empire didn't die suddenly, its engine seized and it ground to a halt. The real story is one of fiscal crisis, military transformation, and a fatal feedback loop. Rome's fall was the slow, grinding end of a once great machine.